Well, hello, Amanda Prosser. I'm delighted to have Amanda on our show because this is the first ever, she's making history. This is the first live interview that we've done with our channel. So, Amanda Prosser from rural New South Wales, welcome.
Thank you, Tony, and I'm really pleased to have this opportunity.
This is great. Now, Amanda and I have known each other for quite some time. We've been active on a number of battlefronts, but specifically at the moment, we're trying to do our best in the trenches of the pedophile epidemic. But before we launch into the subject, I'll just invite Amanda to give us a little bit of a personal background of how she came to be in this and what her background training is.
Basically, I was a police officer, an operational New South Wales police officer, and I decided that I could possibly be of more help to society, helping people to read and write rather than locking them up. So I made the transition to teaching. I was a teaching assistant first as I completed my studies. Now, both of these professions mean that you are a mandatory reporter. And I've found on this journey that a lot of people don't understand the term. As a police officer and a mandatory reporter, you can take action immediately because you have the authority. However, as a teacher, you must pass the information on to your superior, which in a school would be the principal or the deputy principal if they're not available. So as a teacher, I was working as a teaching assistant, but on my days off, I was working as a teacher. So I was covering both grounds. And I was called by a student who was now no longer at school, was a young adult. And during a conversation, information was disclosed to me about a particular teacher who groomed a male student each year. It was almost a tradition. And I actually looked at the students, well, the young adults, the former students, and said, do you know the term mandatory reporter? And they said yes. I said, now this needs to be true.
How long ago was this, Amanda?
This was at the end of 2010 during school holidays. So I couldn't contact the principal and follow procedure. I contacted the union, and the union suggested I call what was the Catholic Schools Office, which I did. And what transpired was as soon as I went back to work at the beginning of the school year, from that moment my life was destroyed on every level. Now, I started this journey seemingly alone, but along the way I met others who had had their lives destroyed immediately after making a mandatory report. There is a pattern.
Oh yes, we've noticed this on a number of fronts, and I think it would be true to say that as more and more victims find the wherewithal and the courage to come forward, which takes a great deal of personal courage, we are now seeing a concerted backlash. Would you agree with that?
Well, what I'm seeing is an extraordinary amount of people coming forward, yes. They come forward on their own terms. Some have been very public, some are not. For instance, I have people contacting me privately. They're happy to tell me their details, but they're not yet ready to come forward, both victims and witnesses. And I'm okay with that because it does take a lot of courage. It's a very painful process, and everyone has their own way. But I will say that the amount of people coming forward is enormous.
It is, and this seems to be happening in a number of countries around the world to the point of being something along the lines of an epidemic, or you could say a pandemic. Now, why do you think that is?
Well, I have an interest in exopolitics, as you know, and under that umbrella is the fact that people have been mind controlled and brainwashed. Now, on this journey, I've learned that black magic is used in the elite level child abuse. Now, when it comes to magic, black or white, I'm not interested, but I have learned as an academic to understand the processes, and that's my only involvement. And it would appear that the mind control and brainwashing processes that are used on the children eventually start to dissipate. And that's when the victims start to come forward and start to tell their stories. And some of them are horrific.
Yes. Have you seen anything of the Hampstead children's case? This is gathering momentum in the UK, and there's a lot of people very, very concerned that the British government's doing nothing. In fact, they're doing everything they can to stymie the investigation.
With regards to that particular case, I have no direct link to it, but I do have contacts who send me a lot of information, and that information has been sent to my underground. And they hold everything in trust so that it cannot be lost or misplaced, as the government also want to do.
Yes.
They tend to lose things. They tend to misplace documents and files. Well, that's not happening because I'm not allowing it.
That's fantastic. Now, another question. Why do you think this is actually all showing itself at this particular point in time? Why is it coming to the forward now?
Well, we're living in a time where people are asking questions. Those who understand the term being in the awakened state will understand that many are in the awakened state. But there are also many people who are just starting to ask questions. So they're at the beginning of the awakening process. And I feel this is happening all over the planet, everywhere. So everyone is at their own stage of awakening. And because this process is everywhere and touching just about everyone, victims now feel they can come forward because people will not only support them but believe them. Because some of the stories are horrific.
Yes.
Absolutely horrific. You couldn't imagine them being in the worst horror movie. You just couldn't.
No, well, there's the satanic element that's involved there with some of the dreadful things that they get up to. And I think that will almost certainly put people off that have got no introduction or even at the basic level of this subject matter.
And that is a very valid point, because this subject needs to be out in the open. People need to broach it. It's awful. It's heartbreaking. But we need to broach it. If you've brought a child into this world, or you are related to a child you care about, or you are a decent citizen who actually cares about the safety and welfare of children, you all need to know that children are not safe. When children go for a walk to the corner shop and don't come home, there's a reason. When children go to the beach for the day and don't come home, there's a reason. Children don't just go missing. Everything is connected. And when you've been on this journey as long as I have, you can put the jigsaw together. Children do not just go missing. There are reasons.
Oh, absolutely. And why would you say that this has been allowed to flourish for so long unhindered?
Simply because part of the brainwashing process and the mind control process is the abuse of the child and the threatening of silence. Otherwise, their parents will be killed. Sometimes the parents don't even know. Sometimes the parents are the ones who actually take the children and sell them into the pedophile ring. However, just the threat, the child is threatened to stay silent. In some instances, and I have documents, first-hand victim and witness testimony that states if the children try to run away, quite often they're killed.
Yeah.
And one will be killed in front of the others to deter them from speaking or running away. So the fact that victims are now coming forward is a huge benefit for the rest of us, because we can now try our best to support and protect them.
Yes, I've seen.
We can't protect them if we don't know what's happening.
No, and I think the ignorance, which is greatly reinforced by a compliant corporate media who don't report on this the way they need to, that gives it sustenance, keeps it going. But as you pointed out, with the more and more victims finding the wherewithal to come forward, would you say it would be true that the tables are starting to turn?
Absolutely. Now, we have to factor in that many of the victims name people who are in positions of authority. And that is part of the reason why it's taken so long for the truth to come out into the open. Now, people like myself are often a target, and our lives can be threatened purely because we're standing up and being a voice for those who don't have one. But that has been remedied in my case because the underground following now numbers in the millions. I could not in my wildest dreams have imagined that I would have millions of people in an underground who are very adept at their skills and who hold documents in trust for me. And we have an arrangement that should any harm come to me, should I go missing, even a certain time frame, if they don't hear from me, everything will be uploaded to the internet globally, everywhere.
That's fantastic. Now,
it is, and I'm so grateful.
what would you say to victims who are at this point in time aware of the turnaround but hesitant to come forward? How would you encourage them to take that first step?
It's up to them on their terms. Perhaps they could start writing a diary and put it on paper, and that way it's between them and their diary. It's a personal journey, and as they find their strength, seek someone out they trust, someone that they know will believe them and support them, because I hear time and time again, victims said, I did talk to someone when I was a child, but they didn't believe me. Well, all of that time is over. There are many people, not just myself, there are many people on this planet fighting for you. Come forward when you're ready. Start by writing, get it out on paper, and psychologically you're transferring it to the book. And that might help.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. But for people that are genuinely concerned, although not victims necessarily, but those that would take an active interest, what would you recommend their first steps should be?
Connect yourself to a reputable child abuse whistleblower, someone like myself who has been absolutely transparent, shows all their documents, shares everything they possibly can so that you know that they are the real deal. I've made my former operational police registration number available to the public and my teacher registration number so that people can go and check me out and see that I'm real. Find someone who is actively making a stand and connect yourself to them. Read, learn, engage in the subject.
That makes sense too, in fact, very solidly. I would like to add that I believe the so-called political representatives should be doing something along these lines. Now, what I would recommend, and this was actually mentioned at the 86 forum, the Alternative View 6, put on by Ian Crane in the UK, brilliant speakers. And I can't remember which presenter it was. I think it might have been Max Eigen. But he said to write to your local MP and demanded them to show cause why they should not face charges of abuse of public office, which holds a custodial sentence, for neglect of their duty of care, because they have a duty of care to all their electorate. Would you say that would be a good start?
It would be a good start. It's always excellent when people put their concerns in writing. My only advice is take your emotion out of it and stick to the facts, because they're not interested in emotion.
No.
So stick to the facts, put it on paper, start a Facebook page or a page somewhere and show other people what you're doing. And when enough people actually put their concerns in writing, then they are forced into a corner where they have to actually answer to you. Now, I don't sign petitions because petitions, in my mind, don't work. If anything, they actually alert the powers that be to who's whinging and which areas to look at so they can better cover themselves. And I'll probably get into a lot of trouble for saying that, but I've seen it. I've seen.
I agree with you. We've been at the forefront of the battle against fracking here in the central midwest coast of WA. Although we just yesterday there was a big flurry of emails. The fracking company AWE have actually announced they're scrapping their plans to frack one of the wells near us. So everybody's very, very happy about that, but it's still nowhere near enough. We're not out of the woods with it. But I'm just giving up on political representation because they do not represent the electorate at all. They only represent the criminal corporations that are calling all the shots. Would you say that would be a fair comment?
Well, with regards to child abuse, it would appear that victims are continually naming people who sit in positions of authority.
Mm.
Not all of them. I want to be clear about this. Not everybody who sits in a position of authority is a child abuser or engaged in any kind of corrupt, unethical behaviour. So I want people to understand we need evidence. We can't just speak generally. We have to be smart about this. We have to gather our evidence and we have to itemise. If there is a particular person who represents your community and you feel they're not acting ethically, then you need to separate your emotion and get it on paper. Because that's the only reason I've made it to this point as a child abuse whistleblower.
I've heard it said that people in positions of power in the higher echelons of government tend to be used when they've got this over them. They're quite often lured into situations where they're compromised, especially with the forms of child abuse. And once they're guilty of that, then they're very easily manipulated. Would you think that would be true?
Well, that's how child abuse, that's how pedophiles and predators behave. And when they're in a pedophile circle or a pedophile ring, that's how they tend to keep their business private by having something over another person and then they feel afraid because it's all about fear.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd probably be correct in saying that some people who sit in positions of authority are actually innocent but have been pulled into something they don't understand and something they don't feel they can control. However, when enough people like ourselves present and keep pushing the right way through the administrative channels, these people can actually turn themselves around. All they need is a lifeline, as much as the victims and of the child abuse.
Well, I think that's a very, very upbeat note to end the interview. We've got a couple of minutes over, but that's great. We'll be putting this online as soon as I can get it edited. So thank you very much indeed for your time with us today, Amanda, and we'll look forward to other interviews in the very near future.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I look forward to meeting people, albeit via the internet, who may choose to contact me.
Thanks again, Amanda. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.